Welcome to Caring Community with your hosts Jay and Diane West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcomed. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Hi, I'm Jay West, and this is Caring Community. Welcome to our show today. Our special guest is Curtis Barnes. Say something, Curtis. You got shy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got real shy. Suddenly this guy can talk like crazy, and suddenly you can't talk. Hey, my wife's normally with me today, but she had another commitment, and so I'm interviewing my friend Curtis. I was just out at his place in Beatrice with my wife, and I were there for their Teen Challenge work and ministry they do, both in Beatrice with the ladies and here in Omaha with the guys. And I have not heard all of Curtis's testimony, but he's got a testimony and a story to tell you that you're going to enjoy, and I'll interject some questions. He's going to do 2 shows with us, and so he's going to talk about his former life first and some of the things that happened to him and how he got to where he's at now, and then he's going to share some updated stuff on what he's doing with Teen Challenge. And we love Teen Challenge. We love the effect of Teen Challenge. We love the work of Teen Challenge, and we'll get into a little history of Teen Challenge in just a little bit, but I want to call you Dr. Curtis Barnes. You know, it sounds like you should be a professor or something. You know, it sounds like or a lawyer or something. You know, it sounds like a TV. You're on a TV show now, so this is it.
Far from a doctor or a professor.
Okay.
Anyway.
So tell us, you want to show your picture here, or you want to start? You want to just show them what you used to look like? Can you?
This here is the old Curtis.
And boy, you had a lot of hair then. How old were you then?
I was probably about 30-ish.
30. I've never heard of 30. Is that 60?
30, maybe 32. But, yeah.
So, tell us about the old Curtis. Tell us some things. Give us your little history. Give us a little story.
Well, it all started when I was raised by a single mother, which typically you look at single parent families without a dad in the place. Things get a little rocky for single moms. Anyway, single mother that actually struggled in her life with a disease, a cancer, died when I was 11.
Wow, no parents now at age 11.
Well, my dad was in prison at that time.
Okay, your dad was in prison.
We ended up living with my dad after he got out of prison, and it was not a good situation. My dad was not a parent, but he was thrown into it, you know. And so as it would turn out, I would start using drugs when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
I was smoking marijuana at 11, and it still boggles my mind to say this. I stuck a needle in my arm when I was 12.
Wow.
And
that's just crazy for a 12-year-old. You know?
I look at my grandson who is around that age, and I can't fathom how that could even have happened.
I have trouble understanding how 11 or 12-year-old can get drugs. So.
Yeah. Well, there were older.
And pay for them.
Yeah. There were older people involved, older family members, and just influences outside the house. My mother having been sick, in and out of the hospital, that's my last memories of my mother was her being sick all the time, and really lack of supervision because of that, and older family members that led me out with other older people in the neighborhood. And yeah, so my mom died. We went to live with my dad, and I'm the youngest of 4, by the way. And come to find out, my dad was using drugs and selling drugs right out of our house.
Wow.
And it didn't take long for him to figure out that us kids were getting high too. It's just crazy. It's just, you can't imagine how that happens.
And you were going to school and doing all normal stuff at school too, or?
Yes, I did participate in school and do the regular things kids did. I didn't excel, as you might imagine. Played some sports, didn't last very long because, drugs and that lifestyle just doesn't
Right.
do well. Anyway, so come to find out my dad was selling drugs. We were stealing drugs from him, and then it just became a family, okay, everyone knows everybody's doing drugs. And so
What was the hardest drug or highest level of drugs that you ever did?
well, I was addicted to methamphetamines, cocaine, and heroin.
All at the same time?
Yeah, and using crack. Using crack, smoking, everything, and everything I used, if I could get it in a needle, that's how I used it.
I can't even imagine that you being in school, and somebody would have noticed this, in elementary school, middle school, high school, somebody would have noticed some irregular activities. I realized it was years ago and we weren't quite as far advanced as we are now, but being as how old you are, but.
Looking back, yeah, I don't know what that looked like. All I know is as I got older, it progressed, and
What year did you graduate from high school?
I dropped out.
Oh, okay. So you didn't. What year would you have graduated?
I would have graduated in 1982.
Okay, so you're younger than me, and so I'm asking that in part because I have a friend here in town, and he has a similar story to you. He started using marijuana at age 12, and when I met him, he was age 22, and I prayed for him. He had a major medical problem. He has 5 herniated discs in his back, and he couldn't walk very good, and he was going to commit suicide that day.
Wow.
And his girlfriend had brought him to this healing service. I prayed for him, and he got healed, and he got delivered of drugs that day. So it just, all the symptoms to desire them just disappeared, and he's actually a member of our church now. But I just wonder how that process happens. How do you get so addicted? And so many things going on. I mean, because I've never done drugs. I don't know what the highs are like. And so I'm imagining that the highs are different for each drug.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
They are. They're very different. In the early years of my drug activity, I mean, the hard drugs were not so frequent. Smoking marijuana, drinking was the norm. Shooting methamphetamines and cocaine didn't really kick in a lot until I was like 15.
Okay.
And then by then I'm dropping out of school and I'm in alternative schools, and then getting kicked out of those. And eventually I moved out of my dad's house when I was 16. And shortly after I moved out of his house, it got raided by the police and everybody went to jail there, which was a good thing. He ended up going to prison and having an encounter with the Lord. So prison was a good thing for him. Right. Anyway, so he ended up getting his life straightened out, which was a good thing. I went on to get further involved in the drug life.
Because you had moved out, so you weren't caught. How old were you with this picture when you showed earlier? How old were you about then?
I was around 30, I think. So.
Is this a mugshot type picture?
That is a mugshot from Oklahoma County.
Okay. All right. So we're transition us up to this point, if you can, unless there's a lot of main stories you need to share with us.
Well, I actually, there were functioning years in my addiction. I would have good jobs. I worked for AT&T. I was an iron worker really by trade, but I had a job for AT&T where I worked 3.5 years until I got laid off, which, believe it or not, I continued to use drugs there too. And there's a lot of functioning drug addicts and alcoholics.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
And
I'm sure there are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've had news accounts of, sexual predators and those that are drunk and this and that, and it's all behind the scenes, but
yeah.
A lot of it comes out. A lot of it comes out.
Yeah.
They're discovered. So.
Yeah. Building up to this point here, my dad found out that he had cancer in 1996, just became sick, and ended up dying of cancer. And it was kind of a moment for me where I just lost control. Really didn't care. Decided that, I'm just going to be the best at what I'm doing, which was cooking dope and involved in fraud and burglary and theft and just a menace to society.
So you're
in
involved
every
in a
way,
lot of
shape,
you're
or
involved
form.
in a lot of crime.
Yeah.
Obviously to fund your habit.
Yeah.
You know, not because you just enjoy stealing stuff, but
Yes.
all right. So on average, I don't know, daily, weekly, monthly, how much money do you have to just support a habit like that? What do you think?
As much as possible. As much as possible.
So you can buy as much as possible.
From your waking moment, if you went to sleep, till, well, basically, every moment you're awake, you're searching for the next way to make money, to scam somebody, to get the next load of drugs. You could, spend 2 or 3 days in a hotel and never come out.
Yeah.
Just
Because
in
we
there.
learned along the way, when people would come to our church and they'd say, we want money for gas, we want money for groceries, we'll say, okay, we'll take you down by the gas where we'll get you a grocery card and you buy groceries. And no, we don't have to do that. You just give us the money. I said, no, because we don't know if you're going to go buy beer, cigarettes, drugs, whatever. So we would just go with them. And if they really didn't want gas, then it didn't happen. So then we began to have suspicion. So we would learn along the way. So.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scamming for churches and tax-exempt organizations to give out free money
Yeah.
to support drug habits. So
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a section of people that will abuse the goodness of the church.
Right.
And yeah, it's almost a profession in itself.
So you want to
working the churches and working the free stuff in the city.
Right.
So
we're about halfway through this show. So you want to segue to any, how'd you get caught? What happened?
So 1996, after my dad had died, and I decided that I didn't really care about what was going to happen to me. I had picked up a charge for heroin with intent, and I was on a 5-year deferred sentence, and I had violated that probation, and I had gone to jail about 6 times in a 1-year period, and I was getting ready to have to face the facts. Bounty hunters were looking for me because I had jumped bond and I was hiding out. I happened to be sick, dope sick, with what's called cotton fever in that mess that I was in. And I was in bed for a couple days, and woke up one April morning and was gonna go to the payphone and answer some pages that were on my pager. Dating myself a little bit.
Payphone? What's a payphone? No, I'm just
Yeah, and so I happened to be driving a stolen car, and I went out to the driveway and was leaning under the dash, touching the wires together, and I felt this weird feeling. And I looked over my shoulder, and there was a white Bronco about 5 houses down that came pulling out very fast, pulled in the driveway, up against my car. 2 big guys got out of either side of that car and came and opened both doors to my car and said, "Are you Curtis Barnes?" And of course I said no. And and he came in with a knee on my chest and said, "Yes, you are." And that was the day that
Is that the bounty hunters that got you?
bounty hunters caught me, which
I can't imagine. So you're sick. You're trying to maneuver around and buy drugs, and you're also trying to steal things to buy drugs. Simultaneously, you're trying to hide out. That's a strange life to live.
yeah, it's a miserable life
Miserable
to live.
life, yeah.
And the mind-boggling thing about it is people are living this kind of lifestyle in misery. I mean, just a miserable lifestyle, but it's a cycle that just
Right.
repeats itself.
Right. If you
And-
can't get free, if you can't get deliverance, it just repeats itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you swear you're never going to do it again, and then the next day you're
Right.
chasing it again.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So tell us What happened after you got arrested?
So I got arrested, went to Oklahoma County Jail, and slept for 2 weeks. It's what you do in jail. Then you wake up, and pretty soon it's like you're bored. I start reading some stuff laying around the jail, and I read this article about the Big Bang Theory and the probability of the Big Bang Theory being accurate. And it gave an example of taking a watch, busting it up into pieces, throwing it up in the air, and it landing as a working wristwatch. And that's the probability of the Big Bang Theory. And the story was there's a creator. And God bless my mother who raised us in church. I don't know if I said that earlier. My mother raised us in church, sang in the choir. I remember sleeping on pews, spending nights, long nights in worship at the church, and having said a prayer once, a salvation prayer, stood in that jail, and it was like God awakened my spirit, and I started realizing God's real, and this is my lot in life. I'm either gonna die out there, or I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in jail.
And you're probably not in a jail cell that's any bigger than this carpet here, because this is happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, and realizing that, it kind of, like I was saying, it awakened my spirit, and I thought, God is real, and this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life, or dead. And that day, I just decided I remembered that prayer. I said that prayer again, and then I started reading the little Gideon's Bibles that are laying around jails everywhere. Thank God for the Gideons.
Okay. All right. So there's a Gideon's Bible in their hotel and if you don't know it, most airplanes have a Gideon's Bible too. You want to shake up a flight attendant when you're flying, ask for the Gideon, because they'll say nobody ever asked for them, but they're on most airplanes too. So yeah. So you found one in jail. You started reading it.
Started reading it. It happened to be in the King James Version, which threw me for a loop as well.
Difficult. Sounds like if you read it out loud, it sounds like somebody has a lisp.
Yeah. I remember reading Jesus talking about it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. I'm just like, what is that?
Right.
Fortunately, as well,
keep reading. You'll find a good story. So yeah.
Right. And there are other books that make it into jails. There's ministries out there that will send books to prisoners in jail. So I started reading some of those, and just really getting a better understanding of the Bible in general, and Christ.
Some of my books are in the prisons here in Nebraska, in Tecumseh and other places. Some of my books are in their libraries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, God bless those ministries, because it helped feed what I'm taking out of the Bible and put it into some common sense for me at the time. So
did you go to a trial then for these charges?
I did. I went to a trial for several charges. I actually had a couple counties that had holds on me. But it was about a month and a half, 2 months into that stay, that I had a mail packet come in with Teen Challenge information on it. So
who sent you that?
My grandmother. My grandmother sent me that, and just, I don't know if anyone knows this, but the heaven is going to have streets of gold and all this stuff. You read in the Bible, and then there's going to be a better place where grandmothers sit.
Okay.
Because I can tell you right now, the heaven's going to be full of people that grandmothers prayed into the kingdom, because grandmothers believe in you. They still pray for you.
Right.
You hear parents like, I'm done with them, and this grandma's over there.
Yeah. They get older, they got nothing else to do, so they pray for.
Oh man! And my grandmother prayed and just believed God.
So she found out where you were at, or knew where you're at somehow.
Yeah.
And sent this packet of material to you. Okay, then what happened?
So I get the Teen Challenge material. I'm reading these guidelines, and my cellie is reading them with me, and I'm like, I think I want to do this. And he looks at me and he's like, you sure you don't want to just go to prison? Because the guidelines are so rigid.
Yeah, they're rigid and stringent.
Yeah, and I remember distinctively looking up and thinking, yeah, I'm sure. I said, I want to change.
But you can't just, you're in prison, you can't just decide, I want to go to Teen Challenge. Something has to happen for that to
Exactly.
take place. Yeah.
Exactly. And, that was going to be the miracle in itself, How, I presented it to my public defender, and he looked at me and he's like, that's never going to happen. You're a flight risk.
Right.
Bounty hunters had to
Right.
drag you in here anyway.
Right.
This place is in Colfax, Iowa. And at that time, it was 1998, April 1998. It might have been May by then, but drug court was pretty new. And he wanted me to look into this drug court thing. And my explanation to him was, I really don't want to go to drug court and be around a bunch of people that probably don't want to change and are probably using even in this
Right.
program. And I told him, I said, I want to be different. I want to change. So this is what I want to do. And
Of course, every public defender, lawyer, judge hears the same story. I'm going to change, and because they just want to get out.
Yeah, very true.
So how is it that the judge or the public defender, whoever was helping you, how did that work so they actually believed you?
Well, he didn't believe me.
Okay.
What he didn't know is my grandmother had friends at church, and they prayed.
Right.
And a praying grandmother is more powerful than a judge and a district attorney and a public defender. That's all I got to say to that. So I told him, this is what I want to do, and just keep pushing that,
Right.
So court case, or court appearance after court appearance happened, and then the final one rolled around, and he came over and leaned over the jury box where I was sitting handcuffed in my orange jumpsuit and said,
Who's he, the judge?
the public defender.
Okay.
And he leans over and he says, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've never seen anybody with your charges and your flight risk get this kind of deal. I looked him in the eye and I said, praise the Lord, huh?
Right.
And that was a step.
Right.
Because I had a hold on me in another county and other things, hurdles to go through. But for the major charges that I had in Oklahoma County, they said, let him go.
Wow.
Yeah. But they assured me that I would not finish, that I would be back in this
Oh,
courtroom.
yeah, of course, 'cause they
I
don't
will be
expect
back
you-
in this courtroom, and I will have other charges pending.
They don't
when I
expect
do.
you to succeed.
Yeah.
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 And they don't, because they don't know very much about Teen Challenge either at that time.
Right.
It was pretty brand new in America.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of history
Yeah.
to go on.
Right.
So you have to go through all that. How do you get from Oklahoma to Teen Challenge? How does that happen? You have to get accepted? You have to go through some sort of process to get accepted to Teen Challenge?
Yes, exactly. There are some steps. First of all, you have to read the guidelines, sign a statement saying you have read them, you understand them, because, like I said, they're kind of rigid and they're pretty structured. And so then you have to have an interview with somebody, and because the program wants to make sure you want to really dedicate a year of your life to this program.
Right.
So anyway, the interviews, some physical checkups, and then it came to talking to a judge and setting a date when I had to check in to Teen Challenge. And God kind of just pulled the
Does Teen
strings.
Challenge come down and get you out of Oklahoma? Does Oklahoma transport you up there? You're on your own? How does that happen?
No, I actually, believe it or not, was released on my own recognizance.
Wow.
And was given a date when I had to be there. I ended up going from Oklahoma to Texas to get some physical blood work done. God bless my aunt and uncle who helped me do that. Put me on a bus, and I rode to Iowa, Colfax.
So how old are you at this point in your life?
I was 32.
32. So that's 20 years. You started drugs at 11, 12. So that's 20 years you've been doing drugs. Multiple charges, multiple arrests, multiple times in jail, multiple addictions. Pretty strong evidence of God's favor in your life for a judge after 20 years of all this history to go to a program that hasn't been around very long. It's in another state. You're a flight risk.
Yeah.
Okay? That's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah. It's a miracle.
That's a miracle, yeah. So you go to Iowa, and on our next show, we're going to pick up and talk about that because we're just about done here. But it's amazing what God can do in people's lives if we give him the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You know. So it's been wonderful to have Curtis Barnes here with us today on Caring Community and having him share with you. And we're having him back on the next show to segue and tell more of his story of how he was in jail and was in multiple times in prison, jail, drugs, everything else, to total freedom, and how he's helping others to do that now. So tune in on the next broadcast, okay? Thanks a lot for being with us today, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.